starting in Jakarta is a little bit complicated, and in order not to make the professor waiting to give his important master class, we will be proceeding right now. Okay, so this is the first time that we ever do a finance event in Jakarta or Indonesia in general. I know that some of you have attended different events by IE University given by the Singapore office, which is the controlling office across the Southeast Asia, but this is the first time we do a topic focused on finance. My name is Viet. I'm from the admission department from IE based in Madrid. I just came here yesterday from Madrid after 22 hours flight. And Professor Daniel Liebau is an alumnus of the Global Master in Finance program at IE. Later he will give a much more detailed presentation about his background. He's based in Singapore right now. He came last night all the way from Singapore to give the master classes here. Let me just give you some information about IE. And first of all, I would like to introduce a little about myself. So my name is Viet. I'm from Vietnam. I did undergrad in Japan after I finished high school in Vietnam. And I was there for 6 years. I did the Bachelor in Business Administration, and after that I worked for Paco Group based in Tokyo. And I just discovered, like very interestingly today, that we used to work on the same street in different years. So we 10 different years apart in Nihonbashi in Tokyo, which is a very, very city center of Tokyo. And after I went to work for Mizuho Bank, which is a Japanese bank, and I worked in the Hanoi office with very constant travel to Hong Kong, Singapore, and to Tokyo because of my background with the Japanese corporate world. And after that, I decided that I wanted to have some master education in Europe to differentiate my experience a little bit, because at that time I also spoke Spanish due to a personal hobby. And after I just, when I was in my 6th month at I just got an offer from Business School to work for them based in Madrid. And at that time I had 2 offers from Euro Monitor in Singapore and in IE in Madrid, and I decided to stay in Madrid because I'm being from Vietnam, from Southeast Asia. I thought I would come back to Asia anytime. So I've been there in the IE admission department during the past 10 years, and one of my goals, professional and personal, is to recruit more students from Asia to Spain. I think that Spain has a great business schools. If you look at the top rankings for the MBA programs, you'll see the names like ESA Business School, ESADE, and IE always coming in the top 10 or top 15 depending on the years. This is the reason why we have been trying to organize many different events in Asia so far. So very short story. We are a very young business school. If you compare with other top business schools like Harvard, MIT, or even HEC from Paris, right? So we are a young school. We were established in 1973 by a group of entrepreneurs. It's a private school, and over the years we've been giving classes on MBA programs and in law programs, etc. When I started at IE back in 2009, we were only 400 people in the company, and nowadays, 2 months ago, my boss told me that we are already 1,342 people. So it has been expanding very greatly over the years, from 10 master programs 10 years ago, and now we are already over 50 different master programs, and we also have 10 different programs in undergrad studies. We are now based in Madrid, the Spanish capital. We also have the campus in Segovia, which is we bought a cathedral, and which is now the home for the bachelor degrees. It is a huge place, very beautiful, based in the city center of Segovia, which is only 1 hour by train from Madrid. And we are now building a 5th tower in Madrid, in the north of the city. And Madrid has a very a very exclusive business center with the 4 tall buildings. In Madrid, you will never see skyscrapers like we do in Asia, like even in Jakarta, in Hong Kong, Singapore, or Tokyo. Because they have a lot of land, right? But we have been trying to build the 5th tower. That is a very, very exclusive skyscrapers area in Madrid. And it will be completed next year. And we'll be transferring all the undergrad students to this new business center of the city. And also we have online programs. Daniel did the online program that combines the residential period in Madrid with the online video conferences during the weekends. And because he is working full-time in finance and banking, it's impossible to quit his job, and he doesn't want that either. Because imagine if you already have 15 years of work experience, you are maybe managing a department in a bank, you don't want to give up your job. So you want to find a program that also fits your personal needs as well. So I right now have different schools. So I law school, I school of architecture and design, I school of international management, I business school, obviously the oldest one amongst all the schools, and I school of human sciences and technology. For example, this school is offering the master in big data, and you can do it part-time as well. So we have different offices around the world. Now we have 30 different offices. In Asia, apart from the office in Singapore, if in the future you want to apply to one of the programs in IE, you can either contact us in Madrid or you can contact the office in Singapore. Apart from that, in Asia, we have the office in Mumbai, in Tokyo, Shanghai, Beijing, Seoul. You also have, let's say, in the Middle East and Africa, Istanbul. You have in Dubai, you have in Saudi Arabia, etc. So we have 30 different offices around the world, and I think this is the unique trait of IE. The office it doesn't only do the job of a recruiting center where you can go and have some information about the master programs, but you can also count on them in the future. After you graduate, you can go to them, you will tell them, hey, I'm looking for a job in finance, I'm looking for a job in IT. Can you give me some help? So that is one of their functions as well, and I think this is one of the unique characteristics of IE. Okay, if you look at any other business school, they only have the office, let's say, in Paris or in Massachusetts, etc. Okay, and obviously, apart from that, we also have. Over the years, we've had 70,000 students all around the world, 120 different countries. On campus, we also have different clubs. For example, if you do a master in finance, you do an MBA program, and if you're interested in a certain topic like in energy, new energy, etc., you can join one of the IE clubs, and you can vote yourself as president, etc., to organize different events. In terms of the finance and banking sector, we have the clubs in hedge funds, i.e. Venture and capital clubs, i.e. finance clubs, i.e. hedge funds clubs, etc. So you can join the activities. And here is a little more information about the different the functions of different IE schools. Okay, about the Masters in Finance, where we are going to introduce a snapshot of what we teach in the Master in Finance at IE. We are the official partners of the CIB Institute and also the Gaia Association, which says a lot about the quality of the program and also the prestige of the program. We're also ranked number 11 in the world by the Financial Times, number 3 in the world as a global master in finance that will place you in the sectors of hedge fund, private equity, and asset management. Okay, and we are also number 5 in the world if you want to get a job in an investment bank. And here is a very, very short list of different things that we offer in the program. We have the partnerships with both the Frankfurt School of Finance and Management, based in Frankfurt, and London Business School. We know that after when the Brexit thing is happening, people are looking for other options inside the European Union, and that is why we decided to link up with a top-notch school based in Frankfurt, because many students would be interested in working in Germany after, and maybe Daniel can tell us a little bit more information after that about the situation of jobs in finance and banking in Germany. We have the faculty that is consisted of 95% of practitioners who are occupying very top positions in finance, who are teaching you in the program. In the next slide, I'll show you some examples. And also Daniel can tell a little bit. He used to work at HSBC in Singapore, in Tokyo before joining the master at IE and before becoming a visiting professor at IE. We also are one of the first business school in the world that operates a trading room that you'll be, if you do a full-time program and you're based in Spain, you'll be working with the different platforms like Bloomberg, Thomson Reuters, MATLAB, Pusat, etc. every day. So when you graduate, you will become very, very familiar with the different platforms being used by the different banks. Okay, we have the trips to New York, to Frankfurt, to London, and to Ghana as part of your studies if you want to join them. Okay, and obviously we are the first and the only European business school to launch a specialization in FinTech to catch up with the most up-to-date trends in the finance and banking sector. As you know, the banking sector is heavily influenced by FinTech and blockchain technology, and that's why we would like to bring you the snapshot, the glance at the sector through Daniel Liebau's master class today, and to give you a feel of how it is like to be an IE student of finance. Okay, here is a list of different professors that will be teaching you. If you are interested, just take my name card. I will send you the full list of who is teaching in the program. You'll see that all of them have been working at very top positions in finance, and they will be giving you not only the expertise and the experience that they have, but also the network that they have. Okay, so I've had students who come from, let's say, India, Pakistan, China, Ukraine, Russia, Argentina, who got job offers in London. And you know that it could be very, very difficult to get a work permit in the European Union. But then the students, thanks to the education and the recommendations of the professors, they have been able to secure very, very good jobs in the European Union after graduating from IE. Okay, and we have different programs. If you're around 22, 23 to 30 years old, you may want to do a full-time program. You want to take 1 year off to come to Madrid to do a master program. In this case, you can do a full-time master in finance program, okay, for 10 months. If you are already a senior or an executive professional, you don't want to leave your job, but you also want to have a top-notch education in finance, and you can do the online program with the residential periods in Madrid, in Frankfurt, and Madrid. Okay, Daniel, back in his time, he did the 3 residential periods in Madrid, but recently, because of the Brexit situation, we have been able to also include the residential period in Frankfurt into the program. And we have programs that will be available to different stages in your professional career. We've had students in the Global Master in Finance, for example. The oldest students were 55, 54 years old, who owned several financial institutions in Hong Kong, and he still learned a lot from the program. Because imagine if you have been working in derivatives, in fixed income for a long time, maybe you don't have that much experience on working in venture capital. And then the master will also be able to help you both academically or professionally. So the Master in Finance is a full-time program for the young profiles, around 23 to 30 years old, has 2 intakes per year, and you can also do it together with the combination with an MBA or the Master in Management program. Also, we have the part-time program designed for those of you who are currently working, and you can specialize in one of the 3 specializations in FinTech, in investment, or in corporate finance. Okay? awesome. Once you're already a student, and here are a list of different electives you can take, and you will see that it is more comprehensive than any different business school in the world. We are very, very proud of being the most practical approach program, especially in Europe, because you will be able to learn not only from traditional banking, FinTech, etc., but you will also learn other areas of finance, such as Islamic finance, such as microfinance. I think we used to have a master in Islamic finance, where we have students from such countries as Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Malaysia, etc. Recently, we incorporated everything into the Global Master in Finance program, because Islamic finance is a very small sector, but then even though we have a center inside IE that exclusively studies Islamic finance sector, and you can also specialize a little bit in this through being a student at IE, and we will give you more context of the center if you want to do some specific project. We have alpha generation. We also just created the Python class. You know that if you want to be associate now in investment banking specifically, you have to go through Python. In the past, only MATLAB was enough, but nowadays Python has become a very important requirement. And here, the new specialization in FinTech, the world is changing faster than we think. 5 years ago, we would never imagine what would happen to the banking and finance sector. And here, we're offering different classes from cryptocurrencies, ICOs, robo-advisors, we have alpha generations, FinTech lab, etc. And you will see that we are the only business school in the world that is offering such a very exclusive education. Okay, very, very fast about the Master in Finance program. Part-time, you will be studying based on where you are, and you'll be coming to Madrid and Frankfurt during 1 or 2 weeks during the period of 13 months. And the training room here is equipped with different platforms. And apart from that, IE War Room that I was just showing you is the only business school in the world that is leading the future of education through offering the virtual classroom experience, where you will be able to interact with professors and classmates almost in the same manner. In the very, very wide screen of 64 meters, you will see your classmates, and even the platform will let us know who's paying attention, who's sleeping, who's not, who's doing something else. Okay, so it's a very, very nice experience. And at the time that Daniel did it in 2013, 2014, you didn't have it, right? But now the professors can spot you if you're already connected, but you're sleeping and you're not like touching the screen. So I think it is a very, very interesting platform. Okay, and international trips to New York, to London, to Frankfurt and Ghana are also part of the program that you can participate in, and we also offer scholarships, full scholarships to cover the expenses of the trips. Great. So some of our students, I think some participants were asking me about venture capital and private equity. We have some students. Andrew did the master in advanced finance program several years ago, and then right after IE, he established together with another friend from IE who did the MBA. One of the first deal around social impact venture fund in Europe, and it was listed in Forbes 30 under 30. This was the American and Canadian version, and last year he was also in the Spanish version. So last year in the 30 under 30 of Forbes of the Spanish version, we had 4 students from IE. One was Andrew, and 3 others who were students of the MBA program. So we are very, very famous for entrepreneurship, venture capital, and for creating that entrepreneurial mind in the students. Even though we have many students who later went to investment banking or to private equity, but then it seems that the entrepreneurial spirit and creativity followed them after graduating, and many of them became very successful entrepreneurs after that. Vasilios from Canada, Greece, he was only like 26 years old when he got into this list. If you saw all the rest of the guys on the list, you will see most of them were former prime ministers or different like very key figures from the country, and he was only 26 at that time. We are very happy for him. So we have Vicente Pascual here. In Spain, we use Cabify or Uber. I know that here you use Grab, right, before Uber. So Vicente Pascual did the Master in Advanced Finance program at IE. Before IE, he's working for the Spanish Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai and in Vietnam. And then after the Master in Finance at IE, he became an entrepreneur, and now his company is going very, very big. And it is comparable to the size of Grab here in Asia, and they're expanding to Latin America as well. After the huge success in Spain, valued at $1 billion US. And also Rohit Goyal, very young at this time. I met him in Singapore, I think 2 years ago, and he told me, I just set up my trade fund in July, and by December I already got 100 million Singapore dollars. And I think that is huge, especially when you're only 28 years old. So I think at IE, you also learned to think about the box, and I think it's very, very important. And without further ado, I would like to hand the microphone to Daniel, who is the star today. Sorry, I grabbed already 15 minutes of your time.
No star. Wait, how do we do this? How do we do this? Okay, good. Good evening, everyone. Welcome.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming. I think Beta and I are both excited, and we're when we came to see the room earlier today, they had only put like maybe 20 chairs in the room, and we were hoping, hopefully it's not good enough, Hopefully we have some more people. So then we asked for more chairs. So then it's very good that you all came. Okay, so I will talk a little bit about FinTech and what is going on in the future in finance and how that will also affect us. Who works in the finance industry? Show of hands. Okay, quite a few of you. So how's that gonna change? So I like to keep things very simple. So I do a short introduction, then I talk about what I call the faster future, then talk a little bit about innovation, a little bit about finance, and then about something that you probably think I'm going a little bit off track. I'm going to talk about design in finance, even though that doesn't really fit at first sight. And then also a little bit about blockchain. And then we can have a conversation. So I don't want to lecture you. I want to ideally have a conversation, okay? So whenever I say something and you disagree completely, then you raise your hand and you say, no, that's not true, okay? All right, quick introduction. So as you can tell from my accent, I come from Germany. I started my career actually, very interestingly, in a company that today would be called a FinTech company. But when I started to work there in 1999, the word FinTech was not invented yet. So it was just a company that did software for financial services companies. Okay. Worked in different investment banks since then, and about 5 years ago I said, okay, enough, I probably need to start my own company because there was so little innovation in finance, I wanted to do something about it. Around the same time, or shortly after, I also started engaging academia a little bit more. So right now I'm still working on my PhD, also doing a lot of research in the space of blockchain. Okay, so if you want to talk more about blockchain, then my door is wide open. Okay, since 2017, I have an appointment as visiting professor in IE Business School, which is very fantastic. I teach a class on FinTech business models. I don't know, I recognized it on Viet's slides because I'm like, I wonder whether my class is on her slide, but it actually is, so that's good. Okay, so. What is this?
Skewness.
It's an exponential curve, right? Very good. So, in the past, if we had to guess what was going to happen in the future, we would extrapolate on a linear basis But then I argue right now, you can't do that anymore. So it's very wrong to say, oh, you know, this new technology, last time something came around, took about 10 years, you know, will take another 10 years. I think that's wrong. And it's very important in finance, because I can tell you, the first thing that every bank CEO does when something new happens, they will think, how long is it going to take until this thing materializes? And if it's after I retire, I don't care, right? So if it's, I don't know, if I retire in 10 years and I'm thinking with my linear thinking, I'm thinking, oh, it takes another 10 years, then I do nothing. But maybe the pace of change is faster. So we miss opportunities, right? And maybe we get caught out in a very awkward situation where everything happens so much quicker. So I have this example to show you. It's very small numbers. But this is the total amount of cameras in the world. Okay? And I think it's since 1933. And then we end somewhere here 2013. So if the number of cameras is a bit of a proxy for the pace of change, you can see that it follows that curve, right? Except for, let me show you the next slide, really the exponential curve looks like this. So you can see, right, this bit is just this. But in the last few years, sometimes when I show this slide, my arm is not long enough, but today I can do it. So that kept me thinking, right? How do we approach our challenges in finance today if we know that the pace of change goes up that much? Here's another person who said something that kind of confirms what I'm saying, right? So I don't know whether you've seen the video, but this is like last month, right? 22nd. And he said that in 2020, that's next year, right? He's gonna have 1 million robo-taxis on the streets. That's a car without a driver, right? That drives you around like a Grab car, basically. Okay, you can argue he's delusional, or he's burning a lot of money. He just raised another, I don't know how much, $2 billion. But the thinking is the same, right? Nobody would expect that something like this can happen in 2020, especially because right now it's 2019, right? But maybe he's right. So then I'm thinking, okay, what should we do? Clearly, we cannot just continue as we did, right? Our linear kind of extrapolation doesn't work. So I came across some research that somebody did in MIT. It's a professor that runs the MIT Media Lab. It's a very interesting institution. They have lots of different people from different disciplines. And he worked a lot on it, and he thought, okay, maybe we need to approach things differently if the future is so fast. And he came up with these 10 principles. And you can have a whole course on this type of stuff, but I want to share with you 4 different principles that we can apply to finance. Oops. Okay? So the first one, is there any compliance officer in the room? No compliance officer? Okay, then I'm safe. Actually, I'm also safe if there was one. But interesting, right? The first principle, disobedience over compliance. And I think they're not talking about compliance in a regulated activity, right? Where you are, I don't know, selling securities. They're talking more about if you always stick to the rule book, where is the new idea going to come from, right? You can't. So if we just say, oh no, this is the standard operating procedure, and that's what we do, it's very complicated to create innovation. So perhaps if we are in a role in a bank or another financial institution where our role is to come up with something new, you know, we need to think outside the box a little bit. Of course, again, and I have to say this one more time, I'm not advocating to not do non-compliant things, right? So if you engage in a regulated activity, you always have to be compliant. Okay, second one, compasses over maps. What's a compass? What does a compass do?
Show north.
Show north. Okay, very good. And how does that compare to a map? What does a map do? You know a map, right?
Yeah.
The map shows specific locations of some.
Ah, okay. So interesting, right? So a map is basically something that gives you exact path, right? Turn left, turn right, turn left, turn right. Maybe you arrive somewhere. And the compass, what does it do? Just says, broadly speaking, this is north, right? So I think what we're trying to say here is maybe the direction is more important than the exact path, okay, if you work on something new. And apply that to finance. You know, sometimes in finance we like to overthink things because everything is about reduction of risk. We cannot have risk, right? But then you want to do innovation, you need to experiment. So today, just do a prototype, right, with a FinTech company and try it out. Why not? Okay, next one. Emergence over authority. So anyone who's worked in a bank knows that it's very hierarchical, right? CEO on the top, middle management, lots of other people supporting. So here's interesting research from complex systems. So emergent systems are basically the ones where every participant in the ecosystem has some special skill that contributes to the benefit of the group. Think about ants. You know ants, the little animals?
Yes.
They work all together, right?
Colony.
Yeah, there's no hierarchy like in a bank, right? Where you have managing director, executive director, associate director, assistant vice president, analyst. They don't have that. So maybe it's time for us in finance to also think about, maybe the current form of organization is not the right one, right? Maybe we need to reinvent that a little bit. Okay, fourth, risk over safety. So today we have cloud computing, right? Fantastic.
Yeah.
What's the main benefit? Yeah, I saw your jacket.
Oh, that's it.
What's the main benefit of cloud computing? What would you say?
Spend less money for servers, physical servers.
Okay. What else? Other ideas? It's cheaper, yeah, that's true.
You can access anywhere.
Can access anywhere, very good. What else?
Online storage. If you have 16 gigabytes in your phone, you can always back up for 1 terabyte in the cloud.
Also, you can flex, right?
Yeah.
You need more, there's more. You need less, there's less.
Yeah.
So it basically converts your spend, if you're a company, right? It converts your spend from capital expenditure to operating expenditure. Isn't that fantastic? So if that's the case, right, and we're talking about risk over safety, I think we should experiment a lot more, right? Because right now it's so easy to experiment. And it becomes a numbers game, you know? If you're a bank and you say, okay, I want to do an experiment, but we can only do one per year. And because it costs $3 million, right? Maybe that's not the right way to do it. Maybe you need to do 50 experiments and a single one costs $50,000. Because it's so easy to experiment today, right? If you don't do it, if you only do one, we know most experiments fail, right? 90% of experiments fail. So then you need a lot of years, right? To hit one where it's successful. So I don't think that works. So do lots of small experiments, take a little bit more risk, and don't be over obsessed with safety. Okay? Okay, any questions on those principles? As you can see, I can talk for a long time about them, but we can talk about it over coffee later. Okay, I want to talk to you about innovation. What's innovation? Anyone know the definition?
Create something new.
Okay.
Create something new, usable.
Okay, interesting. I like the usable bit. And I tell you why. Okay, so if you forget everything I say tonight, then maybe you can walk out and remember this. Innovation is the creation of new value, okay? And it's a very short sentence, but it's quite a profound one. Because you can create something new that does not create value. That's called an invention, right? We have professors in the university do that sometimes, right? They come up with something, there's no use, right? That is invention, it's not innovation. You can also run a very successful business by selling coffee, right? Nothing innovative about it, but prints money. Also no innovation. But when the two cross, you get innovation. Creation of new value. You do something new, you can convert it into something that has value. Okay? So I want to show you a short video. And while we watch the video, I want you to think about this question. What do all innovations share? Okay, I'll show you the video that we discussed. Except for there's no sound. That's not good. Why is there no sound? Okay, wait. Let's try again.
Essay about the future. In the future, a telephone will be so small that we can put it in our pocket and take it with us everywhere. We can see whom we're speaking with on a small screen, and we can watch the news and TV shows on the phone all day. We can also listen to the radio by putting tiny speakers into our ears. The phone will have a built-in camera. You can see live football matches on the phone. You can play fun games and send pictures and messages invisibly through the air. There's also a kind of gramophone inside the phone, and thousands of great songs will come into the phone through the air. And do you know what else? You can make your own movie with your phone, and you can record sounds, and you can even play your own ringtones.
Okay. So what is it? What do all innovations share? Any ideas?
Imagination.
Imagination, okay. What else?
Eccentrics and being eccentric.
Okay, interesting. What else? This thing is really annoying. I'm sorry. So, what else? Any other ideas?
Become a rebel.
Okay.
Crazy.
Crazy. I thought about one thing, right? They're so obvious in hindsight, right? Everyone has a smartphone today, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, but when it didn't exist, it must have sounded a little bit like what the girl was talking about, right? So very obvious in hindsight, one thing. Then what else? Who had a Nokia phone? Anyone had a Nokia phone before?
No, Ericsson.
Long time ago, right? Yeah. So why is there no more Nokia phone? Disruption. No more innovation in Nokia, right? So what it tells you about innovation is something you have to do continuously. You cannot do a one-off and then disappear. Not good enough. Right? Okay. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the different types of innovation real quick. So this is the most prominent one, right? Like a product innovation. Some sort of tool that basically has fundamentally new functionality. And Apple has produced a whole bunch of them, right? This one is an older one, but I still like it as an example because nobody had some device to play music before that thing came along. But there's also business model innovation, right? I used to have Uber on this slide, and then I'm thinking, I don't like it anymore. And then I had Didi, you know, the Chinese version.
Didi.
Then I thought, I'm going to non-Chinese country. So I thought, okay, I'll use Airbnb. But basically, companies are rejigging supply and demand players, right, in their ecosystem, and then they create value on the back of that. Interesting. There's also social innovation. Anyone seen this? This logo? No.
Kakao?
No, it's not Kakao. It's Kiva. So Kiva is a non-profit that basically enables people like us that have maybe a little bit more money to lend to people that have very, very little money, right? And why I have this on here is because creation of new value doesn't always come in rupiah. Also comes, if you can finance somebody who can buy a cow, who can then make enough money to send the kid to school, it's also some sort of value creation, right?
Mm.
Okay, then there's also open innovation. Anyone heard of open innovation yet? It's a very confusing thing, I know. But just real quick, in the past, how companies operated, right? They developed some technology and then they sold it to their market. But then in the context of FinTech, what happens a lot now is internal technology is very bad. So we're going to go to FinTech companies. We're going to source external technology. We're going to try to sell to our market. But if it doesn't work, we can explore new market. Right? So there's a whole book of research about, not books, or a body of research by a professor, Henry Chesbrough, who is from California, and he basically came up with this term, open innovation. 2 more types of innovation, then I let you go. So, well, not entirely, but for that topic. There's incremental innovation, right? Small little details that make a product so much better. This is one of them, right? The notebook is not there because it has a great cable, right? It's there to write emails and create PowerPoint presentations like this. But man, if you trip over the cord, you know what this is worth, right? It's worth your computer. Then there's also, who said disruptive earlier? You said that. There's also disruptive innovation. Very overused term, okay? Very overused. Everything disruptive these days. So give me 1 minute, I explain what the theory says, okay? So imagine you're working in an established company and there's a new market entrant, right? You're selling coffee and there's a new company that's also trying to sell coffee. But what's the problem? The new company has a bad product. And then the margin of the new company is also very low. Okay? So what do? You're the dominant player in the market. There's a new company. Their product is not good and their margin is not good. What do?
Laugh it off. Just laugh.
You laugh,
Yeah.
exactly. You do nothing, right? The issue with disruption is these guys improve over time. And you continue to say, not interesting, not interesting, not interesting. You laugh. But then eventually they become so good and you've become so feature rich and so expensive that the crowd is going to say, actually, this one's good enough. Then you disrupt it. So next time somebody says, oh, this is disruptive, you can think about that and say, actually, you're wrong, this is not disruption. Or maybe they're right. Okay, so sorry, I'm talking a lot about innovation, and then, we're here to talk about a finance master degree. So why is this even relevant today, right? I want to talk a little bit about FinTech. And to start, I want to talk about what traditional financial services companies look like today, in my view anyway. Please feel free to disagree. So industry is dominated by large players, right? Your HSBC, Citibank. When you think about the alignment to the customer, often conflict of interest. Huh? One part of the bank does one thing that contradicts the other part, then people have agency issues. Also, if you think about the culture, and I only dare to say this because I used to be in banking for so long, but we think in spreadsheets, right? There's not much creativity in us. If you think about client focus, who needs to focus on client? Somebody who wants to sell something, right?
Right.
But if there's always somebody who needs financing and somebody who has excess money to invest, and you sit in the middle, how much do you really need to care about your client? Not much, right? It's quite comfortable, right? It's obvious, business is always there. Ethics, well, very much questioned, right? Definitely after the financial crisis, everyone thinks, oh, bankers are fraudsters, right? And then if you think about technology budgets, They have huge technology budgets, billions of dollars, but they have to invest them all in running the shop. They can't innovate, they can't put them into anything new because it's so old. The technology is so old. And the regulatory burden is so high that they just have enough money to run it. Okay? Then I want to compare a little bit to FinTech. So industry. Basically, the industry exists, or FinTech industry exists because they want to steal market share from the existing players, right? And some of these companies, they only exist to take away that agency problem. I am good friends with a startup entrepreneur in Singapore, and he created a company that is, do you you have Spotify? Anyone got Spotify? Okay. So you know how on Spotify you can pay a subscription and you get all the music you want. So he's done that with investment research. And what it does is it takes away the agency problem that the brokers used to have. Because the brokers would always give you the research so that you trade, because they make money on the commission, right? So he took that away. Also, if you think about the culture in FinTech companies, often very diverse. You know, it's not uncommon to see a designer as part of a FinTech company. And obviously, therefore, client focus 100%. And then this one, actually, I have to put a little question mark here. Because in the beginning, when FinTech sort of came about, I thought, yeah, banks are the bad boys, and then the FinTechs, they are the good ones. But so far, as usual, there's all not so good, I can tell you that. Tech budgets, very interesting, lots smaller than banks, right? But the percentage they can use to build something that the client wants is much higher, okay? So, a few different definitions. The key thing to take away here is there are two types, right? There are the disruptors, the guys who kind of come into the market and try to grab market share from existing companies. And there are also enablers. Enablers are the ones that realized disruption is very difficult. I'm just going to sell my product to the bank. Right? These are the two types. All right, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how far we've gotten with this whole FinTech idea. And this is from a KPMG report that I found the other day, from last year. And then you can see there's lots of China companies here, right? Quite a lot. 50 billion capital invested, 36 countries, 215 founders in that top 100 report. Some of the interesting. Have you seen any of these logos? Anyone? Yeah. Apart from Grab everyone knows.
Robin Hood.
Robin Hood, yeah, okay. Anyone seen this one? Oscar?
No.
It's an insurance company, very interesting. Okay. Okay, so this is from a CB Insights report, a company that does research on private companies. And they've come up with this whole spectrum of different FinTech companies. So when 5 years ago we said, okay, this is all FinTech, it kind of does payments or something like this. Now we're trying to split things, right? There's payments, but there's also people who focus on technology and banking, insurance, there's lots happening in capital markets, digital banking, there's lots of retail banking kind of propositions that exist outside of traditional banks. This is a little bit of information on the kind of funding that we see globally. And you see that 2018 was this amazing year, right? Lots of money deployed into FinTech startups. And even if we extrapolate, you know, this year is going to come in a little bit lower. But still, you know, for over 400 deals in the first quarter, it's quite a lot, yeah? This is the Asia view. So again, not sure where we're going to come in, but it's almost $1 billion deployed in the Asia region, right? Includes China, obviously. And 127 deals. And this number goes up every day, right? I think even today I saw 2 announcements of FinTech companies that got fresh money. And these are some of the bigger deals that happened in Q1. And you can see the companies are very different, but I think this one's quite interesting, N26. Why? Because it's German from my home country. Okay, it's a challenger bank. This one similarly interesting, also a challenger bank. Yeah. So now tech companies emerge and they say we're gonna apply for banking license, and we don't need to partner with anyone. We'll do it ourselves, right? And 1.5 billion valuation, 2.7 billion valuation. They have enough money to pay for the banking license. Yeah. These are some more deals.
Okay.
This is like a global sort of view of where the big FinTech companies come from, right? And obviously, we're sort of in this part of the world, and there's lots in China, right? And then US, obviously, quite big as well. Okay, so what I want to highlight just real quick, I don't know how we're doing on time. Still good? Okay, so what I find interesting is in the beginning, FinTech was focused on payments and retail customers. It's changed. Now people are starting to think, oh, why can we not? Why do you need an investment bank? Maybe there's a FinTech play where we can do things that usually investment banks do. And some of these companies are trying, right? This company is basically managing a lot of the cap tables for all their clients, right? Symbiont, I think, is trying to move the equity onto the blockchain. So there's lots of interesting things that are happening here. I promised I was going to talk about design in finance. So this is what kind of typical design day looks like. Very different from what we imagine to be in a financial services company, right? Has anyone heard of design thinking? Anyone? Okay. What's design thinking?
It's a broad way to find ideas.
Okay.
By usually use a big paper and put post-it on it. And
It's a little bit like that, right?
A little yes, a little bit.
Okay. So design thinking is a methodology, I've got it on here, I think. It's a method to do innovation. And I think it's quite important to know about this. Why? Because we're talking so much about innovation and it's all a bit abstract, right? If you walked out of the room and I said, okay, now do innovation. How's that going to work? So what I like about service design thing is a method to do innovation. This website I can highly recommend. Lots of free tools if you want to give it a shot. Design thinking is very good when there's a lot of ambiguity about how to solve a problem. Okay? So don't use it where somebody else already figured out how to do it, because then it's a waste of time. But if nobody knows how to do it, it's a great tool. Okay? And in my class in IE, we go through a whole design thinking experience, because I think it's so important, right? I've got a full session only on this, because I think I can't talk about FinTech and then not give people the tools on how to do something, right? In the end of the day, we want to walk out of the degree and we want to know what we can do and have some skills at hand. Okay, who's got Bitcoin?
No, sorry.
Sold. Today, 7,000 sold.
Actually, Ethereum, not Bitcoin.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay. So, interesting, right? How did this whole blockchain thing come about? It came about from these people called the cypherpunks, who wrote a manifesto in 1993. And they said, we basically need cryptography to protect privacy. And I can highly recommend you should read this manifesto. And then when you get to the end, you say, this is written last year, or 2018 and 19, but it's actually from 1993. Very impressive. And so that's happened first. We need privacy. Then in 2008, everyone lost faith in the financial system. And somebody who we still don't know who it is said, oh, we're going to create our own financial system, right? Called it a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Came out 2008 and was based on Bitcoin. Why? Because people don't trust the banks anymore, right? So I don't know who knows how it works. I really like this very simple picture, but the objective of this thing, of this transaction, right, is one person sends money to another person. And then these are the different steps that we need to go through, right? So transaction sort of gets added to the system, distributed amongst the network. Then people, the so-called miners, they will approve the transaction. And then once the transaction is mined and approved, the balance lands in party B's wallet. Now, what's interesting about this is that there is no intermediary involved, right? There's no third party that you have to pay today to make this transaction happen. Okay. So a little bit more on what it is. Few research colleagues put this together. You know, we can replace trust with that system. We can record data in a sequential manner, and it's a technology that uses all of these different things: cryptography, open source software, computer networks, and incentive mechanisms or game theory. So it's a very multidisciplinary area if you look into it more. Very interesting. And one of the key sort of traits of it is it's decentralized or distributed, right? So if you think about this kind of way of operating, right, you can see that if this center goes bust, it doesn't exist anymore, then the whole thing falls apart, right? You can see that even in the decentralized model, if some of these central nodes break, then, you know, if this central node breaks, this guy, they're buggered, right? Because they're not connected anymore. But if you look at this network, you can see that there's so many multiple ways to move that you're not dependent on any individual party anymore. Okay. So some of the other features of blockchain is secure by design. You can't change it. Once something is written onto blockchain, you can't delete it anymore. It's very transparent. Everyone can see, right? Still, it's private because in each transaction that everyone can see, there are no personal details stored. Okay. And also, it's inefficient and slow. And you might say it's a little bit counterintuitive. Why do you say it's so great and then it's inefficient and slow? Well, the idea behind the blockchain is to remove that third party, right? And create a system that is so-called trustless. And that has a price. Can't be efficient and have that, right? That's the background. Who's participated in an initial coin offering? Anyone? You lose money? Oh, you don't?
No, actually I'm promoting ICOs, so people invest.
Okay. Then you might like this. Very useful. It's from a colleague of mine in Rotterdam. And these are the success factors, empirically proven for ICOs. Okay. If you disclose a lot of information, good. If you and the opposite obviously holds true, right?
Yeah.
If you have good quality rating, that seems to be good. If you do a pre-sale, that's good. If you show your source code on GitHub, that's positive. And if you don't have bonus schemes, also good. Okay. And if you have a shorter token sale, that's more positive too. I can send you the link to.
Sorry. What is bonus schemes? Is it like airdrop?
No, airdrop can be one, but also giving massive discounts in the beginning.
Okay.
So ICOs are interesting, right? They're an alternative way to raise funding for small entities that are trying to build a product. And this is outdated, but as of June or July 2017, there's more money poured into ICOs than there was into traditional venture capital funding. That has reversed since then, and I'm monitoring this very closely. But it's interesting to see because it came out of nowhere and suddenly it was there, right? Remember when I was talking about that exponential curve? This is a good example, right? Suddenly, alternative way of funding. All the venture capitalists go, what do we do now? Because if they don't need us anymore, then what are we going to do, right? Yeah, this is a little bit more actual kind of curve that shows 2018, there was really a lot, and then it kind of came down, the bubble imploded a bit. Then there's a question, you know, are all of these ICOs scams? So that is a question that I thought long and hard about, and then we wrote a paper on it, and we said, okay, let's study it a little bit empirically. And I give you the two-sentence summary of the paper. There is a lot less scam than we think, and a lot more incompetence than we think. Right? So it's very difficult to prove intent, because that's what you need. If you say, if somebody says Daniel's a scammer, we have to prove that I had the intent to scam you. If I'm just not a good businessman, I'm not a scammer. Okay? Okay, and with that, we can talk a little bit more. Now you can talk more, and I can answer and not lecture so much. Yes.
Okay. Let me present. My name is Daniel. I'm from Business Indonesia Intelligence Unit,
Nice to
one of
meet you.
the business unit of Business Indonesia Media. I would like to ask you about the maturity of FinTech here in Indonesia compared to the European. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. So I'm not an Indonesia expert, and I don't live here.
But
So
you live in Singapore.
if we can figure this out as a group, then even better, right? But I do think that there is one very fantastic opportunity in Indonesia. And I live in Singapore, right?
Yeah.
And in Singapore, people always try to build something and they try to make it work very hard in Singapore. And the thinking is, once we made it work in Singapore, we can go to Malaysia or we can go to Indonesia. The problem is, by the time you customize it so much to that small little red dot, right? It's not going to work anywhere. Hence, right? It's so specialized. So, because you're such a big country, there's much bigger opportunity, right? And you can see with companies like Gojek, for example, that works really well, right? Developed here, boom, suddenly it's huge. And it goes beyond Indonesia. I have one Indonesian fintech friend who is, I think, in peer-to-peer lending space, and that seems to go quite well. But I can't give you the numbers, unfortunately. Other comments, questions? Yes.
Question. My name is Johannes. Actually, I help a startup called Entry Money,
Okay.
based in London. So my question is about the blockchain scam you mentioned earlier.
Sure.
Is there a parameter to measure scam? Because our white paper in Entry Money uses a Lithuanian bank license, which most ICOs have it. And can we measure that if there's a bank license from Lithuania, it means it's not a scam? Can we measure like that?
That would be so good, huh? Okay, so research on ICO scams is in baby shoes. Okay, this is the first paper that tried to put some structure around it.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the paper, what we recommend is the creation of we call it a crypto scam probability index. But it's not quite there yet. So can you measure it? No. But can we do some more research and then measure it? I hope yes.
Okay. So there's no parameter yet.
So it clearly cannot be one parameter, right? It has to be a bunch of them, which is why we need to construct that index. But I think you can take a picture of that.
Okay.
And there's basically you can read the paper.
All right. Because the challenge here in Indonesia, Central Bank of Indonesia is still, how do I say, experimenting this July. So the Central Bank of Indonesia is not really sure, can we implement this ICOs or blockchain in Indonesia, because we don't know our servers capability, the production server. That's a
Yes.
challenge.
I understand. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, please.
And still, as many countries offering the coin, something like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Indonesia, but some of them they are scam. So can we see is like coin A is going to scam or how? And going to see it.
I love that already two people ask about this because again you gotta read the paper. So it's difficult, right? Because as I said earlier, many coins will fail, okay? But then just because they failed, it doesn't mean that they're scams, right? They can fail for other reasons. If you think about startup entrepreneurs, right? Most of the startup entrepreneurs, whether they work on blockchain or not, they will not succeed, right? how many companies become something like Uber? Very few, right? So what we found out is basically there's a lot of companies that don't make it. You know, financial performance is bad, but then not so many scams as everyone was claiming before. And it's a politically quite sensitive thing because very prominent economists, you know, went in front of the world and said, "Oh, this is all scam." So then we said, "Okay, hold on, let's look at it in detail, right?" And then we find something else. So very interesting.
So it should be something like cheating because somebody put a model, big model, and become scam. How could be?
Say again?
Yeah, if they first they can get money and then scam, you cannot find the person.
So it's very difficult, right? Because you got to prove intent, right? And we realized that a lot of what we did in terms of our analysis is just ex post, right? It's after it all happened. So as an investor or as a regulator, it's kind of useless because, you know, it's easy to say, "Oh yeah, it happened. Oh yeah, it's very bad," you know. So that's why we're saying, okay, let's develop that index and say this is a tool for us to estimate how likely is it that, you know, project A is a scam. That's the idea. Okay.
Sorry, can I ask again?
Sure.
Okay, actually, I'm also an active student in a master degree student in financial engineering in World Quant University. So I would like to inquire about the IE Business School program, especially about the FinTech. Well, I would like to know whether do we have to, if we apply for this program, do we have to have a MacBook? Because based on my experience, there are some case studies I have to do use Anaconda and use Python, but some GitHub codes are only runnable in Mac environment, or is it possible to run in Windows environment?
I can only tell you my own experience.
Yeah, okay, please.
I had a Mac at the time, but the two people that sat next to me had a Windows computer, and they passed quantitative methods,
Okay.
and they passed derivatives, and they passed all of the stuff that kind of goes more into the quantity kind of a space. And I did too, luckily. So I think both platforms okay.
Okay.
It's 5 years ago, right? So
Right.
maybe it's changed.
Right.
But I don't know. Do we have any specific requirement?
No, we just require students to have a laptop, and we have the IE trading room that is open like almost 18 hours a day. That is exclusive for IE students. It runs different softwares like Bloomberg, Thomson Reuters, MATLAB, Python as well. So you can stay as much as you want in the classroom if you do a full-time program.
I see.
Yeah. So Python has just been introduced in the past 1 year as compulsory subject to the program. I'm not aware of whether you are asked to do a mock or any other system.
I see. There is another challenge, and that's the hardware. And the software usually requires to get the data from Yahoo Finance. And as you know, an API in Yahoo Finance has been changed, and we cannot get free data to measure the transaction to month to month. What do you use in IE Business School? Sorry?
FactSet.
Is that free? Is that free for API?
For the time of your studentship, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite cool, actually.
Okay. How do you spell it? Flexer?
FactSet, FACTSET.
I see.
FactSet.
Okay. FactSet. Okay.
Other comments, questions, disagreements?
I have a question.
Please.
I have a question on innovation.
Okay.
My background, I'm an entrepreneur.
Excellent.
My business is artificial intelligence, face recognition. So even though we have some big clients joining us, but it's quite difficult to educate the rest of the market. Like challenges, like they don't need it now, or they don't need to advance technology.
Yes.
So what's the best way to educate the market?
What's the best way to educate the market? Cool. I'm not a marketeer. But I think I have a friend who's a marketeer, and he always tells me off, because I'm also an entrepreneur, and sometimes I do something online, and I say, oh, now we launched X, Y, Z, and he's like, it's all wrong. You don't understand how to do social media. I'm like, yeah, that's probably true. So I think what I learned from it is to understand how and which platforms to use in the sort of online space is quite important. Do you, for example, advertise much on LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, yes, but we do B2B like that. So we just
No, but so think about it. A lot of people say that, but then I realize most of the people who are on LinkedIn are not entrepreneurs. They work for big companies, so they are your B, right? They are the manager. Yeah. So my business also not B2C. So I spend a lot of time there, and it's one way to build your brand, right? It's going to take time, but that can work. I think another way to do it is if you can get into I don't know the maturity of your company, but if you can get into a startup accelerator, for example, that can sometimes create a lot of noise, right? When you graduate from it, and then, I don't know, next funding round is in the papers, that's quite good. Every November in Singapore we have the FinTech Festival. You should go there and have a little stand if you can.
So,
Yes?
Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, which one is come first? And before they doing the mining, but mining is quite expensive using high condition and electric.
Yes.
And the new time, next generation they use what?
Okay. So Bitcoin arguably was the sort of first blockchain-based cryptocurrency. There were some other experiments before that, but the first one that is kind of really that somebody used to have a real transaction was Bitcoin. And yes, mining, very expensive, cost electricity, therefore cost air conditioning. So if we were in a blockchain 101 class, I'll now talk to you about different types of creating consensus, right? Creating consensus means we have to agree which copy of the database is the true version, right? So that's what mining is all about. But mining costs a lot of money because in Bitcoin, what you do is you ask the miners to compete on who gets to write the next block. And to compete, you ask them to solve a cryptographic riddle, okay? And to solve the cryptographic riddle, you need a lot of computing power, which is why you need a lot of electricity. But if you apply another way to get to consensus, not what we call proof of work algorithm, but proof of stake algorithm, that can come down a lot. And lots of big blockchains, including Ethereum, are working on implementing a so-called proof of stake algorithm, so that we don't have to deal with the work piece anymore.
Yes, sir. There.
Oh, you go ahead.
Yeah.
He's been talking all
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Just curious.
Going from the point from the economics, like you saw like the exponential curve, right?
Sure.
Like, but from the economics point of view, there will always be a bubble, right? So it will spiral down somehow, anyways, right? So if we go through that, like even in Bitcoin or anything, like Bitcoin is, like you said, inefficient, especially because like large number of hexadecimal code, like because of the password, like it has to be long. So.
Yeah.
So there's a challenge as well, like because the technology in one side is evolving, at the other end, the like security reasons is causing problems as well, and like quantum computation, everything is making more difficult. So because like all the things comes to an end or like goes through a bubble. So what about the fintech? Like how should the banks and anyone who wants to invest to tackle those challenges? And also like because it will not last for all time. Like there will be a bubble. Like in some point, maybe not in like 2 years, maybe in 10 years.
Sure. So very interesting point, right? And I would like to add to what you just said that exponential curves can signify different things, right? So they can be the sort of precursor to a bubble if it's a price curve, right? But initially, what we talked about is the pace of change, right? So that is not automatically correlated with a new industry or something like that, right? It's just that over time, the pace of change picks up, right? And that has been going on for like hundreds of years, to be honest, right? So I remember that maybe in the 80s, right? People were amazed how quick a change was deployed across mankind. It was 10 years, right? And then now, I'm having, so good example, right? The paper that I showed you about the success factors of ICOs was written at the right time, and then it was not published fast enough, and then the market tanked, and then the paper becomes irrelevant. By the way, for an academic, when they want to shoot themselves in the head is when they publish something that nobody reads because it's irrelevant, right? So what we're saying here is more about the pace of change rather than the rise of an industry, because those usually come down again, like you said. So when we think about FinTech, I think there's quite a way to go, because if have you ever worked inside a bank?
I'm from IT background.
Okay.
Yeah, but I know
It's so broken. It's so broken. I think there's a long way for FinTech companies to, take a little bit of juice in that market. Other comments or questions? Yes, please.
Okay.
In my opinion, that this blockchain technology will be a new normal for following years. But my question is how to make this technology become more down to earth, because
Good.
we talk blockchains, but actually if we ask more deeper, nobody knows what blockchains what. How to make it to reality and in FinTech technology.
Sure. So one thing that would, I'm going to say something very salesy, okay? So one thing to understand it more deeply is obviously to come to IE. Okay, but I know what you mean. There's lots of marketing people who don't really understand any of the disciplines that we had on my chart, right? They don't understand cryptography, they don't understand economics, they don't understand IT, but they still think they know a lot about, they're expert, ICO expert. So don't talk to them. Read academic papers, much more useful, I think. But there's another kind of point that I like about your question, right? Which is all of these people, even the ones who know about blockchain very well, the founders of some of these projects, right? They try to address problems that are so far away in the future, even with all the acceleration, so far away. I think the answer to your question is we need more people who solve problems that we have today with that technology, right? And there's lots of them. Think about, I don't know the situation in Indonesia, but think about land registry. Great use case. Think about in Singapore we have a central authority that keeps track of all the companies and the shareholders in that company, right? And it's a centralized thing, and you have to update it, and it's all manual, horrible. So great use case for blockchain. Put all the shares in all the companies on blockchain, and then next time, I'm like, oh wow, I really like facial recognition. I wanna, you wanna sell me 5% of your company. We can just do it, right? No, now we need to fill in the form and this and that and the other. So I think real use cases is the good point to focus on. Other questions, comments?
Sorry. Okay.
Oh, you too. Somebody else.
Okay.
No? Okay, Johannes, go ahead.
Okay. Actually, I would like to follow up the question about blockchain. What I know is usually you have to have virtual machine or virtual box in Ubuntu then you can run blockchain to practice for programming. Do you do that in IE?
So this is a very good question. So we have had no class on blockchain for the longest time, and now when you look at Viet's slide, there's like not one, there's like 5 different ones, right?
Okay.
So I haven't seen all 5 of them, but I would say that in the Master of Finance program, there will always be a focus on the sort of financial markets, economics kind of side of thing.
Okay.
Not so much on the software development side of things.
All right. I see. Okay.
So
Yes.
conclusion is a new time. I study master about the AI, big data, and cloud status.
You already did, or you're trying to do the next thing.
Yeah, for the new generation.
I think to understand a bit more about machine learning is probably not a bad idea. Yeah. I say that to myself too because I'm not a specialist, but that would change. Other comments, questions? Yes.
I just want to ask about like a lot of governments see cryptocurrency like differently. Like in Japan, they acknowledge it as a exchange.
Yeah.
Okay. Like in Indonesia, it's only acknowledged as a commodity.
Yeah.
So you can trade it, like, but you cannot use it like money.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Because there's a different level of trust between governments.
Oh, totally. And you know, there are more extreme examples to that, right? So, for example, in China, they don't accept it at all, right? It's illegal.
Same in Indonesia.
Same level, really?
Yeah.
No, they're opening up actually.
Okay. Okay, no fighting, please. But I mean, to your point, I think different governments look at it in a different fashion, and it's even worse, you know, because sometimes the same government look at it in a different way. So the number of times the SEC in the US have changed their view on is Ethereum a security or not a security is countless, right? So it's all signs of this thing being very new, and everyone's kind of trying to figure out what to do, right? Okay. I like the Swiss, because the Swiss, they came up with the categorization, and they said, if it's this, it's that, if it's this, it's that. And I think to have a bit more nuanced view, rather than to say yes or no, is probably smart. But I'm not a regulator, so, you know, it's very, I mean, I can think about China, right? Of course, China. Do you remember that picture that I showed about the decentralization? China is not run like that. China is Beijing in the middle and everyone listens, right? So what, of course they don't like a decentralized model, right? That's kind of the opposite of what they're trying to do, and they are doing it very successfully. So there is no, oh, you gotta all do it like this. There's a local kind of component to it. Okay, other comments, questions? Last chance. Nothing?
Yes.
Yes.
What is Hyperledger? Is that a continuation of blockchain?
Hyperledger is a, so in blockchain we differentiate between public blockchains and private blockchains. Public ones are the ones where everyone can join in, and you know, you spin up your node and then you become part of the thing. And private ones are the ones that are perhaps created by companies where they agree who is going to be on the network. So IBM created a private version that you can use if you're corporate, and that is called Hyperledger. So it's IBM's private blockchain. Okay.
Great, so thank you very much, Professor Daniel.
No, thank you guys.
Very much everyone for joining us. I think someone was asking about Pusat. So we have a training room that has the training room with those platforms. And if you want us to send you the presentation, let us know. And I hope that it has been informative for you, this session. For those of you who have not taken the attendance yet, please let me know so I can grab your name so that in the future we would invite you for other events because we have the office in Singapore that comes here once a month to organize different topics. Thank you very much. And for those of you who are interested in knowing more about the Mastering Finance program, we'll be hanging around here at the coffee table over there, so you can come and talk with us, either myself or Daniel,
Okay.
because he did the Mastering Finance and I did as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for coming, guys.